The French spoken by the elderly individuals who never completed high school is impeccable when utilized for entertainment. As I was on the verge of passing Aubrey, my eldest son's wife, she discreetly shared a remark with us, ensuring that only we could hear. The smirk on her face mocking us seemed inappropriate for a bride on her wedding day. It turned out that the surprise speech we were asked to give for Tyler, our eldest son, was a trap set by Aubrey to embarrass us. Aubrey consistently looked down on us for having only completed middle school and seized every opportunity to insult us. Being a proud Ivy League graduate, she often made remarks like, "For someone who was a high school dropout." When she suggested our participation in the wedding the day before, she might have intended to make a joke out of us in front of her relatives. Perhaps she believed that high school dropouts wouldn't be able to deliver a proper speech in French. Despite her expectations, a feeble attempt at showcasing broken and incomprehensible French, we reassured our eldest son that we were prepared. Determined to stand up against Aubrey's disrespectful attitude, I took hold of the microphone. "My name is Violet, and I'll be turning 70 this year. Despite facing hardships growing up, we now lead ordinary lives like any other family. We've always been protective of our eldest son, wanting to shield him from the struggles we endured. Our sacrifices seemed to pay off when he decided to marry Aubrey. Unfortunately, their wedding posed new challenges. When we first met Aubrey, she gave off a modest and gentle impression, making us thrilled about our son marrying such a wonderful person. However, things changed when my husband began reminiscing about our son's past. He's always been smart, unlike us. Thanks to that, he even attended the state university." Aubrey interrupted with surprise, "Oh, so you two didn't go to a public university?" "No," I replied. "We didn't even finish high school due to family circumstances. We had to help out with the family business instead of attending school." Although there were circumstances we couldn't be proud of, we exchanged rueful smiles at the behavior of my eldest son's wife. It's not like we didn't want to learn at school just like everyone else. We were proud of our home and didn't resent it. Well, hearing that someone only completed middle school is quite surprising, right? Absolutely, but I'm so glad that intelligence wasn't passed down to Tyler. What do you mean? Well, having in-laws who only completed middle school is truly like a black hen laying a white egg, my eldest son's wife said with a slight smile. The atmosphere became tense in an instant. We couldn't say it was something to boast about, but both my husband and I exchanged glances at her blunt remarks. We were taken aback by her words, though my eldest son's wife seemed unfazed and even laughed, saying, "Oh, was that too difficult a term for high school dropouts?" Seeing her nonchalant smile, we were at a loss for words. Giving her the benefit of the doubt, we thought perhaps she meant no harm and bit back our words. However, my eldest son's wife's words and actions were nothing short of disdain, as if she was simply looking down on us. She must have thought that because of the term high school dropouts, we were pitiable, uneducated in-laws. From then on, her attitude became increasingly terrible, making spiteful comments at every opportunity. "You two married quite young, didn't you? Because you had nothing better to do." "That's not true. We got to know each other well and then got married. It must have been a time when you could choose who you loved. But ending up with another high school dropout means you could only get someone on your level, right?" Aubrey said with a mocking smile, her words dripping with malice. Despite her terrible behavior, both my husband and I repeatedly warned her, yet she didn't seem to listen, acting as if we were arrogant despite our lack of formal education. In front of Tyler, she would act somewhat well-behaved, but when he wasn't around, she'd become brazen, openly voicing her criticisms. It's true, my eldest son graduated from an Ivy League school, but her behavior made it clear that academic achievements don't necessarily reflect one's character. As the wedding preparations progressed, Her attitude only worsened. When she occasionally came to our house and we had dinner, she'd say things like, "Oh, even someone with just a middle school education can cook, huh?" Looking over the meal I prepared, another time she remarked, "Even with just a middle school education, you live in such a nice house. Maybe it's because your son is so accomplished." Her tone suggested as if we were dependent on my eldest son. "Aubrey, don't be disrespectful to my dad. This house was bought with his earnings. Tyler is so kind. He probably helped out a lot, right?" Even when Tyler noticed and tried to intervene, Aubrey just brushed it off, saying, "I didn't mean any harm," all the while smirking at us. When I looked into her condescending eyes, I could only feel malice. Even when my eldest son tried to correct her behavior, she assumed I had tattled on her and seemed annoyed. He can't possibly earn enough to build a house just because he dropped out of high school. That's what my friends say too. To make matters worse, my eldest son's wife had been spreading baseless rumors around town, claiming that we were leeching off our son's earnings and living a luxurious life at his expense. We were at our wits' end with her insensitivity. "Don't expect me to take care of you just because I married your son, okay? I just became a family with Tyler not to deal with burdens like you. You're preaching to the choir. We wouldn't want someone who can spout such harsh words to look after us anyway. You're in denial. Oh, by the way, I hope you've given up on the idea of relying on Tyler. Please don't be a bother any longer." No matter how many times we clarified, Aubrey seemed convinced that we intended to continue relying on my eldest son, constantly keeping us in check every time we met. Even when we told her that wasn't the case, she wouldn't listen, leaving me with nothing but sighs. With even the atmosphere around the upcoming wedding becoming tense, Aubrey came to us with a request. She wanted us to give a speech as part of the entertainment during the wedding. "We've taken some money from you both for the wedding, so we'll let you attend. But in return, can you do me a favor?" And I wanted to be a surprise for Tyler. It's kind of last minute to be telling me this, you know. "I forgot. I'm sorry, but it's already scheduled, so I can't change it." "A speech, huh? Well, if that's all you want, I guess it's fine." Despite her biting words, I resigned myself to the fact that arguing was futile and reluctantly agreed. Given the request for a 10-minute speech from the groom's parents, we were skeptical but agreed. Surely she won't try to mess with us during the speech. Just as I had that thought, upon hearing my response, Aubrey narrowed her eyes and grinned cheekily, saying, "Great, so I'll need the speech in French tomorrow." "Why on earth French?" Taking a step back, I asked. She looked down at me with a smug expression. Seeing that expression, I realized once again that she held nothing but malice towards us. I was truly disappointed. A lot of my friends, like me, are Ivy League graduates. I don't want to be looked down upon just because my in-laws dropped out of high school. But even if they're related, there's no reason the speech has to be in French, right? Think about how the other guests would feel. All right, I guess French might be too much for high school dropouts. It must be embarrassing making excuses, huh? With her constant sarcasm and forceful attitude, she left us with a warning to keep our promise and walked away. I glanced at my husband with a troubled look, and he just shook his head in silence. While we were pondering our next move, a call came from Tyler. "Mom, are you okay? Is everything all right?" "Yes, everything's fine. What's up?" "I heard from Aubrey that you guys are going to help make the wedding special. I was worried she might have caused more trouble for you." He sounded apologetic as he said that. It seemed he had called us out of concern for Aubrey's excessive behavior. I wonder if choosing Aubrey as my life partner was a mistake. I never thought someone could change so much just because of their educational background. My eldest son voiced such doubts. I couldn't bear to see my beloved son, who never boasted about his education and grew up to be such a kind-hearted individual, worry any further. My husband and I exchanged a knowing glance and nodded in agreement. "We're fine, honey. Don't worry about a thing. Just look forward to the wedding." We reassured him. With that, we began preparing our speech, determined to show Aubrey what we were made of. We headed to the wedding venue the following day. On the wedding day, everything seemed to be going smoothly, except for the occasional glances and sneers from Aubrey's friends seated at her side. Even when we ran into them in the corridor, they purposely bumped into my shoulder without even a simple greeting. Without apologizing, they moved on, wearing scornful smiles, which made me think they'd probably been hearing things about us from Aubrey. "Are you okay, Violet?" "Yes, I'm fine." I could guess what they've been told, but even then these were very rude individuals. For being first-time acquaintances, their very character was questionable. If I was considered the bad apple in the lot, they surely were no better. I straightened my posture and sighed deeply, waiting for the right moment to fight back. Now we have a surprise speech from the groom's parents. At the lively announcement, my husband and I looked up. My eldest son looked shocked, while beside him, Aubrey sneered at us with a smirk that seemed entirely out of place for a bride. The French of old folks who dropped out of high school is perfect for entertainment, my eldest son's wife whispered, just loud enough for us to hear as we passed by. I had half a mind to slap that smug face, but I held back and accepted the microphone, taking a brief moment to collect myself. I began my speech. "First, let me share a little about us." The moment I started, I saw from the corner of my eye that Aubrey's eyes went wide in surprise. She probably was looking forward to hearing a disappointing speech from the grandparents in broken French. While we may not have native-like fluency, it seems we more than shattered her expectations. My husband, sitting next to me, went on to even show off several other foreign languages, not just French. Seeing Aubrey's wide-eyed, stunned expression, I couldn't help but smirk. "How can you deliver such a speech? It's weird, considering you dropped out of high school." "Please don't judge a book by its cover, or in this case, by one's education," I responded softly and continued my speech. I openly delivered the speech in French, discussing how my eldest son's wife disapproved of our educational background. I talked about her unexpectedly requesting this French speech just the day before and her demanding attitude, implying that if we were to attend the wedding, this was the least we could do. I even addressed her previous insults towards us. I actually had much more to say, but my speech was cut short due to a flustered interruption from Aubrey. Still, the murmurs and whispering in the crowd, coupled with the shocked look on Aubrey's face, made me feel that revenge was complete. I'm sorry for that little commotion. There it was, a surprise speech from the groom's parents. Thank you. No, thank you. And may I say your pronunciation was impeccable. Did you study abroad? No. To our embarrassment, we dropped out of high school. Yes, it's true that we dropped out of high school, but in my case it was to help out with the family business. My husband, although he too only completed middle school, managed to not only support his family, but also became the CEO of a successful company. He climbed his way up, working relentlessly, and even established his own company, learning everything he needed on his own. Not attending school was trivial to him. My husband and I met by chance through our work, and knowing the similar hardships I faced, he stepped in to assist with my family's business. Thank you so much for helping our family. I can't express my gratitude enough. If you're thankful, why not work with us? It would be reassuring to have someone who's faced the same challenges on board. That's how I started working at my husband's company and continued working even after we got married until my retirement. Since the company also had overseas operations, thankfully both my husband and I became fluent in French. I finished off by saying to Aubrey with a smile, it was the bride who asked us to deliver this speech in French at this wonderful venue. She set up this opportunity so that my husband and I, who only completed middle school, wouldn't be looked down upon by her and her highly educated friends, including those who graduated from prestigious universities like Harvard. From her reaction, even though she requested the speech in French, she probably couldn't fully understand it. Likely, she didn't grasp the entirety of our previous speeches either. Her earlier outbursts seemed to stem from her disdain for seeing us speak French fluently. As I waved cheerfully, Aubrey waved back timidly. Her usual sarcastic remarks were gone, and she remained silent and looked down for the rest of the event. The guests from my eldest son's wife's side seemed to have understood the speech much better than she did. Their smiles from moments ago instantly faded. Aubrey's parents appeared just as distressed, and the festive mood quickly shifted. After the ceremony, they rushed over to us, informing us about their professional ties with my husband's company. As we were about to leave the venue, they stopped us while forcefully making my eldest son's wife, who was still in her beautiful dress, apologize. They too apologized profusely. We desperately tried to calm them down. My daughter behaved very awful, and we are truly sorry. It's okay. Even in family, everyone's different. I had no idea. I did not see that coming. Well, I bet you never really listened to what I said. You were so proud, saying a black hen lays a white egg. When I revealed what happened in front of her parents, they both turned beet red and glared at their daughter. The complexion of my eldest son's wife worsened even more. We'll make sure she reflects on her actions. We'll discipline her properly to ensure this doesn't happen again. That's fine. She's now a part of our son's family. She mentioned wanting to distance herself from us. To add insult to injury, my eldest son's wife finally had tears in her eyes. Her parents seemed pretty intimidating, but that's none of our business. Furthermore, I heard that even her friends had cut ties with her because they had believed the baseless rumors, saying, "We thought you had terrible in-laws with just a middle school education." She must have felt embarrassed for getting caught up in all that. Why is this happening to me? If Tyler had told me, none of this would have happened. I did tell you they had earnings enough to build a house and didn't need any financial help. They even paid for all of my college tuition. Yeah, you never really listened to me either. With those cold words, Tyler turned his back on her. Though usually mild-mannered, Tyler was at his wits' end with this situation and was even considering divorce. Abandoned by her relatives, friends, and even by my eldest son, Aubrey found herself completely isolated. A few days after the ceremony, though seriously contemplating divorce, it seemed like they were still trying to work things out in their marriage. Abandoned by my eldest son, Aubrey seemed to work tirelessly, as if she had transformed into another person. "Violet, can we please let bygones be bygones and get along again?" I don't recall us ever getting along in the first place. She seemed to be acting remorseful in front of Tyler, but toward us, she often came up close, pretending to apologize. Unfortunately, I'm the type to hold a grudge, so I pretended not to notice her intentions of trying to mend her relationship with my eldest son and our family, and I kept my distance. Who do you think was suggesting we should cut ties? Oh, come on, quit playing dumb and just help me out, will you? Always nagging. You're the most spiteful person. Why, thank you. Your trying to make a spectacle out of an old couple's French skills was quite a move as well. Not liking my retort, a frustrated Aubrey glared at me with her unapologetic attitude. Our relationship might indeed be severed soon. Even if it put her in a difficult position, I wondered where her high pride came from. She seemed to look down on us and was reluctant to reflect on her actions. Recently, a relative who had recorded the wedding sent us the footage. When it got to my speech, we clearly saw the surprised face of the bride and burst out laughing. You know, school isn't the only place to learn. Maybe I should try learning something new. Why not? Maybe I'll join you. We decided to head to a bookstore together to look for some study materials.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.